All right, my darlings, welcome to your first video lecture. Even though Ms. Zink and I are not here with you physically, we're here with you through technology.
Ooh, super exciting.
So today we're going to learn about the 4 I's of oppression. Now make sure you have your handout and something to write with. Ready? Okay.
So first, we're going to look at that graphic right on top. So this is going to be new information for you, but this information is important when we're going to go through the lecture. So let's take a moment to go through these 4 terms. The first one is dominant group, and it is a social group that controls value systems and rewards in a society, also known as an agent group or privileged group.
The second term that might be new to us is oppressed group. This is a disadvantaged social group that has been stripped of power and privilege within a society and are often treated as outsiders. Sometimes they're also known as a minority or target group. Can you think of any examples of an oppressed group?
The next one is power dynamic, and that is the formation and maintenance of a hierarchical structures of control or influence.
And the final new word that you might have actually heard of before, but not necessarily in the context of this class, is inferior. And that means a state of being lower in status or value to another. The other thing that you'll notice on our handout is these 4 terms that are in some interlocking circles. Notice that they are 4 I's, possibly the 4 I's of oppression. Ooh, exciting stuff.
So let's jump into it. So today's input lecture will focus on the following questions. So at the end of today or this lecture, you should be able to answer all 4 of these questions. The first one is, what is oppression? Sub questions are, what are the 4 I's of oppression? And what other isms are related to oppression?
You'll also be able to answer the question, what is racism? You'll be able to define it and identify it, as well as understand what the 3 I's of racism are.
You'll also be able to answer, what is the difference between racism and prejudice?
And finally, you'll be able to understand, what is intersectionality? All right, let's begin. So first of all, our first question that we will be answering is, what is oppression? Notice that question is on the top of the question column on the left-hand side of your notes. So what is oppression? It is an unjust or cruel exercise of power, or sexism, hate, ableism, racism, tunnel of oppression, terror, genocide, and violence. So many different ways to talk about the idea of oppression. Yay! To understand oppression a little bit more, and also to preface our 4 I's, we are now going to watch this few-minute video. As we're watching, feel free to take down any notes that you any ideas that you have and add them to the column on the left of your handout.
Oppression. It's a word that's often used as a blanket term, but there's actually institutional
All right, so let's jump into our notes. So what are the 4 I's of oppression? So our first one that we're going to go through is ideological. So ideological means the very intentional ideological development of the isms. It's the idea that one group is somehow better than another and has the right to control the other group. So an example of this would be one group could be described as bigger, stronger, more intelligent, more capable, more advanced than another group. Another example is while the other group would be described as the opposite, smaller, weaker, less intelligent, less capable, less advanced.
The second I that we will be discussing is institutional. This is demonstrated in how institutions and systems reinforce and display ideology. So we're already seeing some connections from the first I to the second. Secondly, institutions and systems can include the media, and that can be social media as well as television and radio, governments, education and schools, economics, laws, politics. And institutional oppression means that the idea that one group is better than another and has the right to control the other, this gets embedded in the institutions of society. So we see that these ideas that one group is better than another is then being played out in media, government, education, all the ways in which schools interact and people interact with these larger institutions.
Our third one is interpersonal. So this is the way people play out discrimination and violence on each other. And it's the idea that one group is better than another and has the right to control the other, which gets structured into our institutions, gives permission and reinforcement for individual members of the dominant group to personally mistreat individuals in that targeted group. So some examples are things like racist or sexist jokes, stereotypes, violence directed at certain groups, acts of discrimination towards certain groups. And this definitely includes microaggressions, which is everyday verbal, nonverbal, and environmental slights, snubs, or insults, whether intentional or unintentional, which communicate hostile, derogatory, or negative messages to target persons. So we're going to pause here and you're going to go to the next video. So right now you're going to go back and annotate and we will pick back up on internalized oppression next.